The next game in the round of 32 comes in the West region. Second seeded St. John's taking on 10th seed Arkansas. Arkansas pulled away against Kansas at the end of the game. Unfortunately, when KJ Adams went out, Arkansas went 7-0, turned Kansas over 6 or 7 times in the last 3.5 minutes. Pretty uncharacteristic turnover by DeJuan Harris late. But Arkansas, I thought, other than their kind of like mini meltdown in the second half when they got up 10, I thought they played a pretty good game. They kind of stayed the course, looked solid offensively, made some shots, especially in the first half. Ended up being a little bit choppier in the second half, but they played pretty well. And then as for St. John's, they came out of the gates sleeping. They struggled early, and then ultimately, like we've talked about with St. John's, great second half team. They seemed to really make adjustments, and they ended up rolling by 30. I didn't catch the final score, but I know it was about 30. But that brings us here now. St. John's in this game favored by 6.5. But I think this game has some interesting appeal to it. Of course, aside from the two coaches that are both former Kentucky Wildcat coaches.
Yeah, I mean, this game is probably going to be extremely chaotic. I mean, both teams love getting up and down the floor. They both profile pretty similarly, more defense heavy. The offense is a bit rough in the half court. So I do anticipate this game to be super up and down. Both teams are going to want to play in transition a ton, but both teams are pretty good transition defenses as well. So I think it's going to make for a really sloppy, 80 possession game, probably. I mean, these teams do not want to play in the half court on offense. They both grade out significantly worse, but I think the difference is going to be St. John's in the turnover department and on the glass. I mean, Arkansas is not really good in those areas. They're outside the top 100 in turnover rate offense, turnover rate defense, offensive rebounding, and defensive rebounding, albeit the rebounding factor. If you're a step behind in the SEC, you're kind of going to get swallowed up. So I do actually think they're a top 100 rebounding team in the country. It's just a lot of those numbers are from playing SEC competition that's just filled with freak athleticism. But you're going up against the same thing here in St. John's. They're top 10 nationally on the offensive glass. So definitely consider that a win for them. And then they're inside the top 60 in both turnover rate, offense and defense. So I think that's kind of where the difference is going to be in a game that's probably not going to have a lot of shot making. I'm going to back the team that is going to get more shots, and that's the Johnnies. And I'm going to back the better coach as well. I think Pitino is I think he's miles ahead of Coach Cal. I mean, Coach Cal, I think the game has kind of passed him by. All of his schemes are a little bit outdated, and all that off-ball screening action can kind of just get switched. So guys like John L. Davis, and I don't know what Fland is really going to look like. He looked all right. He had stretches where he looked okay in the game against Kansas, but overall, I do think Rick Pitino can take away a lot of Coach Cal's actions, and Arkansas doesn't really have a post-up game they can go to. That's kind of the one area that you can get Pitino's defense with all the switching that they do. So, yeah, I kind of like the Johnnies here, and not super strong because I think anything can happen in a chaotic scenario. But I'll probably back the Johnnies here.
Yeah, I think for Arkansas, right, we were just talking about it, but Jonas Adu played probably his best game as a Razorback today. If they can get that production out of him, because he did score a few times in the post. He helped them on the offensive glass. He played pretty good game. If they can get that kind of production out of him, I think that puts them in a better spot here, because he does have the size advantage over Ejiofor. I think that could help them a little bit, of course. But to your point, right? I think St. John's has the defenders to kind of take away those guards of Arkansas. I think a lot of them are a little bit one-dimensional in what they can do. Like Davis really needs to be set up pretty well, I think, in Coach Cal's offense. And like we've talked about, like it's been a pretty uneven year for him. He hasn't really shown. He's been better of late, but he hasn't really shown the ability to like create against high level defenders. That's been really the concern for Arkansas all year long. And now they're about to go play an elite St. John's defense that has guards that can switch all over the place and take away what you do best. So I'm pretty worried about that for Arkansas. I'm worried about them turning the ball over. And to your point, I think if Adu can be on the floor and be impactful, they'll be a little bit better on the defensive glass, taking care of St. John's 9th ranked offensive rebound rate. But I still think St. John's just plays so hard. And to your point about Pitino, like I've praised him a lot recently. I think he's really elevated this team, particularly in the second halves, making adjustments. And this could be one of those games where they go into the break and it's kind of neck and neck. And ultimately he just makes the correct adjustments, and Coach Cal maybe doesn't, and St. John's pulls away a little bit. But I think this game has some intrigue. Of course, seeing Cal versus Pitino is interesting. But I think Pitino's the better coach. I think the defense of St. John's is just much better. So I'm going to side with St. John's here to win. I don't really know how I feel about the number at 6.5. But I do think the Johnnies get it done.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't like the number. I think a lot of different things could happen in this game, but because I do like how Arkansas can defend the Johnnies on the interior. I mean, they're 75th nationally in 2-point defense, and that's against SEC competition. So pretty impressive. They have a ton of length in the front court that can, and they have great rim protection overall. So I do think they have a chance there. I just don't trust this Arkansas offense to shoot over the top of the Johnnies, and that's really the one area that you can score on them. They're such a good rim defense as well. So, yeah, I'll say the Johnnies pulled this game out. I was kind of hoping Kansas won because I would have been on Kansas here. I thought they set up way better. Could have kept the Johnnies out of transition. Could have kept them off the glass a little bit easier, and Dickinson would have been the neutralizer against all that switching that St. John's does. I had that matchup pegged from when the bracket came out, and too bad that Kansas couldn't get it done against a not really a great Arkansas squad in my opinion. So, but yeah, this is the matchup we got, and yeah, I would probably side with the Johnnies.
Yeah. So we're gonna side with the Johnnies here to move on to the Sweet 16. Really hoping that we can see that Texas Tech St. John's matchup in the Sweet 16.